Hello, my very dear Aries. This is your reading for January 12th, or when you hear it and it resonates. And of course, it won't be for everybody. Aries, as soon as I started working with your cards, I had this feeling. I pulled one card and it was Overwhelm. And immediately what I felt was like I was sort of trapped in a bubble of my own energy. Like things were really circulating within me. I wasn't putting out the stressors that were coming into me. I was just recycling them in myself, and I was creating this kind of almost chaotic energy bubble that I was existing in of my own making. Now, what you're being told, my loves, was this. Do your best to maintain a calm focus. What does that mean? In this case, what the card is saying is treat your thoughts as though they are energy that's out there. And now what you're doing is you're bringing all of the energy of your thoughts into the central line, like a beautiful concentrated laser beam. The reason we want to do that is because typically overwhelm happens over a period of time. It's not something that just comes on to us like that. If we have not been paying attention, if we've been too distracted to really notice that our nervous system has been revving and revving and revving and building every day instead of discharging every night and then starting fresh, that's when we can get into a state of overwhelm. And it can feel like it's all of a sudden, but it's not. It's been progressive. So what you're being asked to do in this is notice where you're experiencing, okay, there's two things. Notice what the feeling is when you're feeling as though you're building stressors in your body. What does that look like? What might that feel like? A list of to-do things that you're not doing, putting off making phone calls that you're unsure of, dealing with people that you find difficult, whatever that might be. It's to allow yourself to really notice how those things are affecting your feelings and realize that a lot of it is just because your mental energy is out on all of these things, it's not getting a chance to come back to the center point of your nervous system, up your spinal column, and get a chance to recharge. And why is that important? Why can that cause a sense of overwhelm and lack of well-being in the body? Well, the nervous system is meant to regulate itself, but within the movement of the energy up and down, it's also moving cerebral spinal fluid, which is carrying the hormones that your body needs and your nerves need to be able to be soothed, to be able to calm down. So the idea of stopping your mind from being all over and coming into calm focus and stillness works on so many different levels for your well-being. Now, one of the things that you're being told to look at here, or suggested that you look at, is cognitive distortions, because they tend to be, what they're saying is they can go hand in hand with overwhelm. I never thought of it like this before, but it's interesting because really a cognitive distortion is a statement that is not a truth. It's not factual, that is stated as though it is. So I have nothing to eat. Well, actually, I do. I have a lot of food in the fridge. It's just not really what I want to be eating right now. So notice the difference in when you say, I have nothing to eat. Your nervous system actually responds to that because that implies starvation. Now, what if you say, I have a lot of food in the fridge? It's not really what I'm having an appetite for. Well, what does that imply? That implies bounty, abundance, and I'd like more, right? Very different response. Remember, please, that your nervous system is responding to your thoughts in ways that your conscious mind may not be interpreting. So keep in mind, look at the cognitive distortions. And one of the things that you can actually do, they're saying, is you can actually use cognitive distortions and your awareness of them to track back to the situations that are helping to create the conditions that lead you into overwhelm, right? This might be a particular situation, but what I'm hearing is This is platform. This is about you changing your platform. So what's a platform? It's a platform is basically the values on which you stand and which you wish to move forward. So think of it like, it's a tricky thing to say these days, but a political platform, right? This is what we stand for. This is what we're going to work to make better, or this is what we support in society. What is your platform for you, for your life? That's what it feels like, is this is your opportunity to really look at this and say, what is my platform? And check out, how much have you spent your life in overwhelm or building up to it? And then, you need a big vacation to kind of calm it down. But then again, did the vacation really help? You're also being asked to look at the fact that your mind is super important, which is why we want the calm focus and the cognitive distortions to be something that you pay attention to, okay? Because this is a very transformational time for a lot of us, no less for you. The mind card. The mind is not only the tool with which we interpret the world around us, the mind is the great cosmic cookie cutter which manifests our world according to its shape and the energies we put into it. So please, please, my dears, pay attention to your mind, where it goes, and notice the cognitive distortions. Those are going to help you get clarity on what you want your platform to be and where you actually are standing now as compared to where you want to stand. Okay, Aries? Now I'm going to put you on pause because next I'm going to do Leo. So Leo, you're next. The first thing that I did was, when I was starting to work with your cards, of course, we always start with, good intention and all of that. What I got were 2 cards from a pack I don't normally start with, Leo. And I think that's relevant. Because the 2 cards that came out when I was really only intending one was, what was my role in that? And sorry, not sorry. And what's relevant, before I go on with the other cards that came up, what was relevant immediately in that point as I read those cards, it was this that came in. Sorry, not sorry. It's not about not acknowledging your role. In fact, that's crucial. And it's important for you because if you feel like you have to apologize for something, sometimes, Leo, that will prevent you from looking at what your role is. Because you don't want to have to apologize. It's not in your nature to apologize, because you know you're good-hearted, because you know that whatever you're doing with good intention. What you sometimes miss is how your behavior within doing good things might sometimes create conflict or a separation. So what you're being asked to look at is, take a chance on being uncertain about what the outcome is going to be if you let yourself really look carefully at what your role was in any particular given situation. But this is not just about a given situation. This is about a foundational change in your ego structure. Ooh, that's happening for a lot of you Leos now. And it's really good. We really like that, because Leos, you can be so amazing in your ability to create structure, work with structure, think ahead, but with a big heart, with a big, big heart. The thing is, when your big heart actions are coming from a place of fear, of doubt, and you don't clarify it because you're afraid of looking at your role, then what you can end up doing is you can end up throwing the baby out with the bathwater sometimes. And I think I've used that term with you before, because that will happen with all of us, right? Not just fire signs. That can happen with all of us whenever we are triggered into painful thoughts about ourselves. We can want to run away from it, right? So what you're being asked to look at there is, where have you been unwilling to stay with uncertainty, with doubt around a situation, a way of being in a general sense, but more often than not, it's around individual events. Are you willing to just operate in doubt, not knowing? and see where the situation goes rather than having to create a wall. You're being told here, and I love this for you, it's the prayerful card. And the prayerful card, oh, there was something that popped in at the beginning, and they're just reminding me of it again. Thank you. Habits. Okay. But we'll go to prayerfully and then habits. Prayerfully. The prayerful card, I really like this card for you because I showed it to you already, I think, but here it is. This could mean actively praying or invoking the support of a divine presence. Alternatively, it can mean letting your mind and actions reflect an attitude of acceptance of, or at least the possibility of, a higher power, which is there to guide you. It could be maintaining an awareness of something sacred or mystical and acting with the acceptance that it's present, even in the most seemingly mundane activities. You choose. Maybe it's all of them. So now there's a second thing that they wanted me to say. I'm going to write it down before I forget that, lose that track. Okay, first of all, habits. The second one is, yes, okay, there we go. Thank you. So the first one is habits. And one of the things that I heard as I was actually starting to pull the first set of cards was it's not so much the having a bad habit, quote unquote. That is the problem. The real problem comes in when whatever bad habit you're engaging in, or negative or life destructive or life limiting habit you're using, gets in the way of you developing good habits. So a key example might be somebody who smokes, who is maybe using the cigarette to be calm, to relax, like as a part of self-regulation, whatever. But because that person only has time to either have a cigarette at lunch break or to eat, they'll smoke instead of eating a nutritious lunch. That would be the sign of like a bad habit or a negative habit interfering with a positive one. Okay, especially if it's a regular occurrence. I'd rather smoke than eat, etc. So that's just an example. No shade on smokers, ex-smoker myself. And so that's really just an example for you to look at in where are you engaging in situations where you are stopping yourself for whatever reason, thank you, usually taking care of somebody else first rather than doing what's good for you. Now, the thing is here, the good thing so a simple example might be, I'm getting ready to do my cards. I'm going to sit down and do my meditation and put my mat under my feet, my grounding mat. But no, wait, you know what? I'll just do my cards first. I'll just get this. No, Lynn. What one good thing can I do for myself before I do for other people? Well, guess what's under my feet? My grounding mat. Okay? So I've had my grounding mat. I used my chanting. I did all of that stuff. But it was just the simple act of getting out the grounding mat and putting it down and using it while I was doing my prep work for my cards. Just that simple little thing. And now I'm going, that's a great habit to get into because it's a regulation now. But it's a regulation that actually feels really good and actually assists. Oh, look at that. Me helping myself first. Help me with this. So that's just another small example, Leo. Now, the other thing is... yes, agnostic. I think this is important because I just read something about it yesterday. It was a wonderful description by Bertrand Russell, a philosopher from the early 1900s. Just absolutely amazing man. And what he was talking about was the difference between atheism and being an agnostic, being an atheist and being an agnostic. And this, I think, goes beautifully with your Prayerfully card. That's what really triggered it for me, is that, being an agnostic isn't saying there is no God or there is no divine force or there is nothing beyond this realm. It is simply saying, I don't know if there is. I don't know. You have a choice to keep that in mind, that it's not a no, that it's an I don't know. When I started doing a lot of this work many years ago before, early on in life, I said to the divine, who at that time I called exclusively God, God, if you're there, I want to work for you. You stand for what I represent, for what I feel is important in life. But I'm having a problem with faith, so that's the first thing we need to work on. And then I let it go. And my goodness, did I start getting specific information that made me go, oh yeah, there's more to life than just table and chair reality. And from that moment, then, I got to embark on this. And I think the problem sometimes, Leo, thank you so much, I didn't know they were going to say this, is that you like to have things clear. So it's easier for you to say, I don't know if there is, and I'm going to act as though there isn't, because I have no proof. Again, it's the certainty and doubt thing. Well, what about, Leo, if you start acting as though there might be? And you can start by saying, hey, God, don't know if you're there, but if you are, I'm just checking in and letting you know I'm open. This seems to be really about faith, but faith in a way that has been in some ways restricted perhaps by your ego. Okay? And again, Leo, not a criticism. It comes with the nature of your very fixed sign and the quality of your energy. And I say this to you with love because you are, generally speaking, incredibly warm-hearted, wonderful people. And what this is offering you is the opportunity to accept a vulnerability in yourself that is actually going to make you even better, even bigger, because you're going to be more connected to your higher self. That's where your power really lies. And so I'm going to leave you with that, Leo. I think there's a lot in there, and I'm going to put this on pause. I'm going to leave you with that for January 12th, or when it resonates. Won't be for all Leos. And now I'm going to put this on pause, and hope I do it correctly this time, and finish up. So I leave you with that, Leos. Take care. Let me know what you think of the new format. Take care. Here we go. I think we are. Okay, Sagittarius. This is your reading for the week of January 12th, or whenever you hear it and it resonates. As I'm starting to work with this energy, all of a sudden I feel myself wanting to sit up very, very straight, very anchored, solar plexus, and determined. I feel very determined. Now, the first card, interestingly, that comes up for you, Sag, is Virtue. And that card is basically saying, who determines what is right for you? Who determines what is right for everybody else? Is it something that you can only feel good about what you think is good if other people agree with you? Or can you stand by what you know is right for you, irrespective of what other people think? Are you able to do that? The reality of it is that you tend to be very fair-minded, but you also tend to be very empathic when it comes to other people. So sometimes what will happen, Sag, is in the process of determining what's okay, what's good enough for you, what is right for you, or the situation, is you will sometimes go into trying to analyze the other people involved who aren't cooperating in a way that you would like. And so what will sometimes happen then is you'll dilute this sense of power that comes from your sense of your higher being, which is right there. There is another me. There is a higher consciousness in me that is enveloping and infusing this whole situation. Why don't I tune into that in order to align me in my sense of power and my sense of what is the moral imperative for me in my heart? Okay? Now, the reason this is important is because of the empathic nature. Anybody with an empathic nature has a tendency to try to understand what the other person is doing, what's going on, so that they don't feel bad about it, so that they can understand the situation, so that they don't, so that perhaps they can explain it and they can get the result that they want. That's another option. But basically what we look at in a strongly empathic situation is there is a real tendency for the empath to flow into the other person's energy, and is as a way to understand it. What that can do then is it can kind of pull you away from that higher conscious self where there is compassion. Associate the higher conscious self with compassion versus ego, which I see as more empathy. Now, it doesn't mean to say that you can't be empathic as a highly evolved energy being, but compassion is something that allows, it actually lights up an entirely different part of the brain, and the part of the brain that resources you, whereas empathy, the parts of the brain, this is actually a study I was told about during a small workshop, that the parts of the brain that are associated with empathy can create a burnout situation with the nervous system because of the chemicals that it activates, the parts of the brain that are activated. Whereas when you go into compassion, even if it's just compassion for yourself for having to put up with all of that, those moments of compassion light up a completely different part of the brain that actually releases healing and healthy chemicals for your nervous system. So what you're being told here, Sag, is pay attention, notice when you keep getting pulled into trying to understand why, especially if this is a situation of abuse, betrayal, having felt abandoned, anything that connects with old trauma, childhood wounds. Notice when you go into that, the tendency to, I'm going to use a word you're not going to like, the tendency to romanticize it. And what does that mean? I've used that word really specifically because of this. What they gave me was a memory of something that happened many years ago for me, but it was this moment of realizing that I was playing over a situation in my head to try to understand why it had happened, what their motive was, why did I let it happen? All of this stuff with angst and anxiety and sadness and all of those emotions. And all of a sudden I heard in my head, aren't you tired of this yet? And I went, oh, yeah, I am. But in that moment, what I was able to feel was there was a kind of deliciousness in that pain. Now, I don't know if you're going to be able to relate to that feeling or not. Let me try to describe it a little bit differently. It was very familiar. It was very linked to who I was, to how I had seen myself at the time. In some very real way, it was me living in the me that was linked to all that energy. And that's when I got to see that there was a really, truly addictive quality to that kind of thought. We say we don't like pain, but for many of us, we associate pain and love together. And so sometimes in the process of trying to find it, we create pain. In the process of trying to understand it, we swim around in it. Now, it sounds counterintuitive to say, yes, I'm going to spend time in painful memories because it makes me feel alive, it makes me feel connected. But the thing is, very often it's the hanging on to the old memories that connects us to that sense of connection with that other person. And so sometimes what's important is being willing to say, I'm prepared to stand alone. I'm prepared to stand in the rightness of what I know to be true. And I'm not going to waste my time and energy on trying to understand that. Now, how can you handle that? You can handle that by a couple of different things. One of the things you can do is you can say, I'm going to analyze this one last time. Doesn't matter if new information comes up or new insults happen. What I'm going to do is I'm going to say, okay, this is my timeline, or this is my sequence of events. Everything felt right up until there, and then something changed. Can I trust that this was what it was for now? Yes. Now, this has changed into a situation that I have no control over, or I feel like I have no control over. Let me define what it is so that I know what the parameters are. Even if the parameters are unclear, these are the ones that I can be sure of. And now I'm going to operate from this point in time. This is what it is for now. I'm not going to worry about it was historically. What it is now is this, and what is right in this moment. And I'm not going to distract my energy by going back to that first time period going, was it, did it? I'm going to analyze that text, that phone call, that thought, that feeling. No. Bring your energy forward to now, because that's where your power is. And bringing your ability to focus on the part of you, the higher part of you that is deciding what is right for you and whoever is involved now. Even if it's just you, and perhaps especially if it's just you. What's so important in all of this, Sag, is this is where you are getting to crack away the coating that has been plaguing you about not being loved enough, not of having to take care of people in order to be loved, of having to manage situations, of figuring that it was up to you to fix. No. This is about you leaning into grace, my loves, grace. Let's talk about grace. It has a smooth, easy, peaceful, and supportive quality. It flows naturally into us and through us. It's an experience of letting the benevolent universe take us through our movements and guide us with a loving hand. Notice the feeling quality of this description and return to it today. Every time you're about to do or think about anything, or at any point in the day when you find yourself feeling stressed and thinking too much, please lean into grace, which is a divine gift that is there for everybody. And that is going to help you keep a calm focus. How is that going to help? A calm focus takes your mind energy from past and from all these different variables, and it brings it into here. It brings it into focused energy. It brings it back to you, to your nervous system, and it helps you align with the truth of your higher consciousness so that you can understand really clearly what is right and stand in that power. Stand in that power, okay? I love you, Sag. Take care. And, this is a good thing. Because this means now you're cracking out of a shell. I'm sorry, I had to say this. They wouldn't let me finish. You're cracking out of a shell that is going to allow you to glow. And I see you literally glowing with light around you. And with you finally being able to take that creative leap and trust that you will have the people in your life that you need when you need them. That's the great thing about giving up the old story, is now you're letting that child part of you go. You're letting that wound go and be able to grow into this new perspective of who you are. And, sometimes that does change the dance with the other people around us, if it's meant to. And if it doesn't, bye-bye. Over there. Take care, Sag.